If you haven't noticed, college football is in flux. Changes, transition all over the place. Nowhere, no conference, more in flux right now than the Big 12. To leaving for arriving here very shortly in the next few years. It's Power 5 week here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome into our discussion on a Monday afternoon. Check out our conversation, which at times turned into a debate. That's all well and good. That's a good thing right here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's the goal, the aim, the mission. Maybe we achieved it last night, but good debate, discussion last night on the Pac-12. Check out the live stream from Sunday night here on a Monday afternoon at the Voice of College Football, 5 Eastern, 4 Central in the Plains, where it is the heart of the Big 12. We talk about a conference that loses Oklahoma and Texas in a few years, but at least as it appears right now, 2 to 3 more football seasons for both Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12, and holding off the entries of Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, and UCF. Let's look at 2022 in the Big 12. But first, of course, the Amazon link is in the description section of the videos. So when you shop Amazon and contribute to their $1.6 trillion, you got to think Amazon and its revenue exceeds how many countries in the world? All of them, excluding a few? So anyway, you throw a few bucks at Amazon. You don't need to throw additional bucks at Amazon, or to me, basically you take the share from Amazon and you give me 2 or 3%, something in that range. And again, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Calls coming in all over the place, but we will put them on hold for a couple hours here so we talk Big 12 football with all of you. We are looking for post-game hosts. Keep that in mind as well. Post-game hosts. Last year, we delivered post-game every game, every week at Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech as well, Notre Dame. So we want to supply all of those and add some. So if you are capable or know of somebody out there, doesn't have to be you, if you know of someone who knows football, got to know football, got to know your team, and can talk reasonably well, talk at least as good as I can. That's a low bar. So if you can talk at least as well as I can, and then of course you've got to show up and be reliable and be somewhat of a professional. Hit me up at markriderstv at gmail if that sounds good to you, or again, if you can request or suggest somebody as a post-game host. We would like to add, in addition to filling all the spots that we had last year, for all the teams I just mentioned, we would love to add USC is a big priority, West Virginia, those two in particular, Oregon, and others. It's Power 5 week. Did I mention that here at the Voice of College Football? So please join the show. I've left the link in the live chat for you to join and talk college football with me. Oklahoma's owned this conference for a long, long time. Go back to 2000. Bob Stoops' second season. He came in 7-5, won a bowl game, played in a bowl game against Ole Miss, Independence Bowl. I remember it well because I was covering Ole Miss at the time. And then, bam, national championship, year number 2 in Norman for Bob Stoops. Since then, Oklahoma, despite the presence of Mack Brown and Texas there in 2005 and 2009, going to championship games and winning in 2005, Oklahoma has dominated this conference. What Clemson has done to the ACC, Oklahoma's done a whole lot longer, basically matching or possibly surpassing what Ohio State has done in the Big 10, in the Big 12. Not last year, though. We know that Lincoln Riley might have been a bit distracted. Spencer Rattler got benched at halftime of the Texas game. And Oklahoma came back under Caleb Williams in that particular game. But Baylor, Oklahoma State, they were the two best teams in the conference last year. And they played an epic defensive struggle. So Big 12 fans, whenever anybody knocks defensive play in the Big 12, and I think that NFL draft selections would back this up, that the defensive play in the Big 12 from a talent perspective is not what it is in certainly the SEC and the Big 10, also the ACC. From a talent acquisition in recruiting and a talent development and a farm system for the NFL. But in regards to the balance of play between the offense and the defense, the Big 12 is not an outlier anymore. The Big 12, in terms of yards per game, points per game, just look at the Big 12 championship game over the past 5 seasons. These have not been shootouts by any stretch. 21-16 last year, 27-21 the year before. The previous year was the Oklahoma-Baylor overtime game. Even in overtime, 30-23. That's pretty much a standard college football game these days. So that's an old narrative. It does not apply anymore, at least through 2021. We will see what happens in 22, of course. But as of right now, it does not apply. But Brent Venables, of course, the big coaching hire in the conference, coming in from Clemson to take over for Lincoln Riley, and what a culture change. Less about offense, spreading people out and doing those things, and more about tough-mindedness, tough physical play, conditioning. I don't know that this isn't a coaching upgrade for Oklahoma. We shall see. Jeff Lebby comes in from Ole Miss to head up the offense, led by Dylan Gabriel. Of course, he's the new entry in from UCF. And Oklahoma has to replace 14 starters, most notably Caleb Williams and Mario Williams to USC, and others off to the NFL. Eric Gray, top running back for the Sooners, although Javante Barnes, stud freshman, and Gavin Sawchuk will make their presence known. The defense under Ted Roof, but of course, Brent Venables will have a sharp eye on the defense. He will have a hand in the defense at Oklahoma. Texas, 4-1 start, led Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry by 3 touchdowns at halftime, and then the season disintegrated. Lost 6 consecutive games for the first time since 1956. One of my favorite years in music history, by the way, 1956. Anyway, Quinn Ewers. How good is Quinn Ewers going to be? This is going to be fascinating to watch. Texas, the Texas story. Is this a different Texas team? They are loaded on offense. Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, and I could go through the list of receivers. Jordan Whittington is one of the top third down playmakers in college football. They are loaded. Roschon Johnson is, when I flip on a Texas game and Bijan's out of the game and I see Roschon Johnson, I think I'm looking at a top 15 running back in college football. They are stacked. If they get offensive line play, the offensive line has to develop to be better. The offensive line of Texas has been bad for a decade. And, of course, the quarterback play out of a completely inexperienced quarterback. We are assuming that Quinn Ewers is going to win the job over Hudson Card. Texas, fascinating story. On the other end of the spectrum, I believe we've got Oklahoma State and Baylor, because they are two of the most consistent, stable programs and also teams in the nation, especially Oklahoma State in terms of a program under Mike Gundy. We had one of our viewers last night call Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State one of the top 10 programs in the country over the past decade. That's a stretch. Oklahoma State is not. Over the past decade, they might be right this second. We will see if they continue to build on their 21 season, but they came that close to a Big 12 championship and a college football playoff appearance. And, of course, Baylor held them off with defense. Defense won the Big 12 championship last year. Dave Aranda is one of the best in the business on that side of the ball. Jerry Bohannon lost his job at Baylor, and he's gone off to South Florida to be replaced by Blake Shapen. And when he had the stage to himself, he was stellar, clutch. Baylor does have to replace its top back, one of the best in the Big 12. Abram Smith is gone after rushing for 1,600 yards. Iowa State, you talk about losses. I don't know that any team in the country has lost as significant production as Iowa State. Brock Purdy's gone. He's been the man. He's the best quarterback, Seneca Wallace aside, possibly in the history of the Iowa State program. Breece Hall, of course, the best running back in the history of the program. Again, we will give some disclaimer to Troy Davis. Xavier Hutchinson does come back. He caught 83 passes last year, but Charlie Kohler, one of the best tight ends in the nation, an offensive line that was stacked, one of the best in the nation, gone. Mike Rose and others on defense, gone. And Iowa State disappointed last year. They were stacked and primed and ready after winning the Fiesta Bowl the year before and finishing in the top 10 in the country to march on to a Big 12 championship. And they just lost a lot of close games, just did not play good fourth quarter end of the game football. But it's a different deal under Matt Campbell this year. Starting from scratch, Hunter Deckers appears to be in line to start at quarterback. West Virginia, JT Daniels, of course, he's the headliner. Neil Brown in his fourth season. West Virginia fans and our West Virginia guys on here, guys like Travis Kenobi and Golden Blue Dude, Coos Corner, they seem to be happy with Neil Brown, but the results are not good. He's under 500 in 3 seasons. So JT Daniels in play with Sam Jones coming back and Bryce Ford Wheaton. Both caught 42 passes last year. And Dante Stills, him not going to the NFL, big storyline for West Virginia as they try to compete in the Big 12 coming off a 6-7 season. Kansas State, we talked up the Wildcats the other night as one of our dark horse for the college football playoff. Deuce Vaughn, Adrian Martinez, of course, and stout on the front seven and defense. Probably the best front seven on the defensive side in the Big 12. Lance Leopold, Kansas. I'm wearing my Kansas colors. That was subliminal. This is going to be possibly my pick for the Big 12 championship. What do you think? Kansas. They beat Texas. Everybody beats Texas. Kansas beat Texas, but they were competitive down the stretch. Check out the Kansas scores down the stretch against the Big 12. They stayed within one score their last 3 or 4 games. One score away. They were not getting blown out as they did earlier. That's a testament to Lance Leopold. Comes in from Buffalo. You take over a bad football program, horrible roster, undoubtedly the worst in the Big 12 by a large gap. You've got the top 4 in the Big 12. Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, Baylor, for different reasons, are near the top. That's going to be a great 4-team race. And then we've got a glut of teams. And then Kansas at the bottom. And Lance Leopold made them competitive down the stretch. Now they get their 2 best playmakers back at quarterback, Jason Bean, and also Devin Neal. Texas Tech, Tyler Shook will probably win the job, the former Oregon quarterback who led that team to a Pac-12 championship. Joey McGuire, former linebackers coach at Baylor, takes over. I thought that was an interesting and curious hire. I'm not making a judgment on McGuire, but a curious hire that a Baylor coordinator, linebackers coach, not coordinator, non-coordinator, non-group of 5 coach, gets the Texas Tech head coaching job. And of course, Matt Wells was fired after losing a game to Kansas State by 1 point in which his team dropped to 5-3. And then finally, TCU in rebuilding mode, losing Gary Patterson to Texas. He's going to help that defense. Gary Patterson working with the Texas defense primarily. That's big. Sonny Dykes had a sordid run at Cal. Didn't achieve much there, but at SMU, 25-10 in 3 seasons at SMU set him up for the TCU job. Ironically, Sonny Dykes and SMU beat TCU the last 2 years, but TCU the better job in the Big 12. And off into the distance, we've got Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Houston awaiting entry into the Big 12. We welcome your phone calls and everything that you've got for us here at the Voice of College Football. Let me check out the comments. We're talking Big 12. Again, we can talk about anything you'd like. Every college football show is wide open. There are a few exceptions out there when a particular coach gets fired, hired, and that is the story of the day. We sometimes lock in on those particular items, but otherwise, all the time, you can talk about whatever you'd like in the world of college football here at the Voice of College Football. I have left the link in the chat. I will do so again. Let's talk about the Big 12. And again, whatever you would like to hit on concerning college football. Check out the video I posted on Sunday. Utah, Florida. Could it be the best matchup of week 1? Is it the best matchup? Could it be the best game? I see those as 2 different things. Utah, Florida, huge game for both teams and conferences, especially the Pac-12, of course. The SEC will not take a hit with Florida losing to a Pac-12 team. The Pac-12, on the other hand, needs a win in that game. That's probably the most important game for the Pac-12 this season. To start, we'll see how the season plays out. USC Notre Dame may be the game, but as it stands right this second, that's the biggest game for the Pac-12 because of the Pac-12 champion and likely champion again cannot beat the 6th best, 7th best, 10th best team in the SEC. That does not bode well for the Pac-12. Ferris, will Michigan win the Natty? Discuss. I usually apply this statement to teams in other conferences, not in the Big Ten. But the difference between making the playoff and winning the national championship, the difference between showing yourself worthy and earning a playoff spot in 13 games versus the next 2 games is a completely different level. So Michigan would have to show me a whole lot more to compete for a national championship. Robert says that Texas A&M is so overrated, recruited well, but you can't start freshman defensive linemen in the SEC week in and week out. It's got some interesting wordage there, no matter what their potential is, and have success. Texas A&M, for me, since we don't have any phone calls right now and we are responding to your comments in the chat, so I'll lean that way. So we'll lean away from the Big 12 at this point. But I got to say that Texas A&M, I find as a dichotomy entering this season in this way. The program should be primed and ready. Jimbo Fisher was hired 4 years ago. This is his 5th season. He's won a national championship. He's proven to be one of the top 5 to 10 coaches in college football. He's making a ton of money. They are paying him to win the SEC and beyond. They've recruited well. Even before this past controversial recruiting class, number 1 in the nation, number 1 of all time, They recruited well before that. He was recruiting in the 7 to 10 range in the country. So they should be stacked. They should be primed as a program to compete in the SEC. However, it doesn't appear to be their year. The defensive line was shredded. They're gone to the NFL. They've lost most of their best players on the defensive front seven. Isaiah Spiller, their game-changing, playmaking running back, and I know they've got Devin Ashane and Anais Smith and other guys on offense to make big plays, but as Isaiah Spiller, their bell cow, gone, and a quarterback battle that they do not have a proven elite quarterback. So Texas A&M, a curious team in that way. Oh, man. This is your conference, Joey. We got Joey Foster with us.
Hey, what's going on?
What is going on?
Football?
Ready?
And I tell you what.
I guess to talk some West Virginia football.
Yeah, well, we've only got 24 days, 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 30 seconds left.
Well, let's can we be more specific than that?
Probably not. 24 days, 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 17 seconds. So, looking forward to it. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about, so your top four in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I agree with that for right now. I think there'll be some shake-up when the season starts. I really believe West Virginia will start off 4-0 before they go to Austin to play Texas. I think we'll beat Pitt and Virginia Tech both. I don't think Virginia Tech's very good this year. And we got Pitt, Kansas, Townsend, and then Virginia Tech. I think we could be 4-0 going into Austin to play Texas. We always played really well at Texas. Matter of fact, they kind of beat us in Morgantown and we beat them in Texas. That's how it goes. And then Baylor's never won in Morgantown. So I think West Virginia's got a good chance of finishing in the top four in the Big 12 this year. But I wanted to talk about Texas. What do you think of Texas this year? Do you think they could possibly finish in the top four? Because I have them finishing fifth or worst.
Well, what they're going to do and what they have the potential of doing is the biggest mystery in college football. Because, like I said, I am more sure about who Baylor is and who Oklahoma State is than almost any team in the country. Texas is on the other end of that scale. If you look at their talent acquisition, they have the best roster in the conference.
Almost in the country.
Yeah, they're up there.
They're top 5 in the country with their roster. And
yeah.
So I mean they should be putting teams away early in these games. And every team seems to hang with Texas every year and then ends up beating them at the end. So maybe they can turn that around this year under Sark. I'm not sure. I seen they had the football schedule up there, but I guess you're probably going to bring Texas up.
Yeah,
which is fine with me. I don't care. That's fine. I think that, but I think going into that Texas game, West Virginia will be undefeated, and I'm pretty sure Texas will be undefeated too. No, they're going to lose. They're going to lose game 1, but everybody would lose that game 1.
Sure, game 2 technically, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, game 2. So they'll be 1-3, or sorry, 3-1. I'm sorry, and West Virginia might be 3-1 as well if we lose to Pitt, but I think we'll beat Pitt. So that'll make a big game on October 1st.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge game.
Yeah, especially if some kind of miracle happens and Texas beats Alabama, which nobody sees that happening. But stranger things have happened, and it's early in the season. If you want to beat Alabama, that's the best time to get them, early in the season. So
you would think so.
I'm looking. So West Virginia plays Virginia Tech the week before Texas.
Yeah,
and Texas plays University of Texas San Antonio. So but Virginia Tech's probably not going to be much better than the Roadrunners are.
No, they probably won't.
They've lost so much. So I don't. I don't think. I don't think there'll be anything that. I don't think anybody will be looking ahead. But we could overlook Virginia Tech and look ahead to Texas, but I don't see it as a trap game in any way for Texas or West Virginia.
Joey, you have to understand, I'm a bit
The
skeptical of why you and others are so high on West Virginia beating Pitt and so confident that that's going to happen.
Well, it might just be the rivalry, and also it might be that I look at the ACC as how weak they were last year because they were weak. When you've got Wake Forest and Pitt playing for the ACC championship, the ACC is weak. They're down. If Clemson was not the typical Clemson, or they would have just run the table with everybody. But Clemson was still good. But I just don't think. And then Pitt losing their quarterback, and then Pitt losing Jordan Addison to USC. That's just so much production. That's 17, 18 touchdowns that are wiped off the board from a receiver. I don't see them having the firepower because everybody's talking about their defense. Okay, great. They had the 47th ranked defense, I think, last year. West Virginia was 44th. But they say, well, they return everybody on defense. Well, so do we. So, it's not like we're falling off the cliff on defense. We've got a good defense, too. We play in the Big 12 where offenses are extremely powerful, and we're able to hold them back and finish number 2 in the Big 12 in defense. So I think that people are overlooking that. That West Virginia is going to have a pretty good defense. We have for the last, since Neil Brown got there, we've had pretty decent defense. So will Pittsburgh have a good defense? Yes, they will. There's no doubt about it. But will we have the advantage on offense? I think so. We've got JT Daniels coming in, and Graham Harrell's our offensive coordinator, and that was JT Daniels' offensive coordinator at USC. So they know each other. So he knows the plays. He knows what Graham Harrell expects already. Keaton Slovis got hurt the other day at practice. I don't know how bad the injury is, but Keaton Slovis got hurt. So
I think it's great.
From what I read, they wheeled him off in a crash.
Like you are saying here, Joey, everything that you are running down, I don't have any disagreement in. I think it's going to be a close game. Well, it can always, the game itself can always break one way or the other, and there can be turnovers and it can widen the gap. But in terms of what the spread should be on the game, the last I looked, and this was months ago when the line first came out, I was a bit taken back that Pitt was I think an 8-point favorite. That's way too high.
Yeah, it is. But if you read, there was an article that came out the other day out of Vegas, and what skewed that line to make it such a big line was a big money bet, and must have been a lot of money because it said something in the article that Pitt would be that this game's pretty neutral, and Pitt would probably be a 3-point favorite because it was at home. But this big bet raised it to 7. So,
okay,
that's just something I read out of Vegas.
If there's one bet, and I'm not discounting that, I'm not saying that that's not correct because I don't know enough about. I don't know. I'm not aware of that situation, and I don't know enough about. I have a working knowledge of Vegas and betting and odds and how that works, but I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. But if one bet, regardless of the money laid down, is moving a line that much, then there's something wrong with. See, I'm questioning that article that bet moved the line by 3 or 4 points.
I'll find the article and send it to you. It was about 3 days ago I read the article, but I'll go back and find it and send it to you. If I could remember where I read it at, I could tell you, and you could just look it up real quick. But I can't remember what article it was in. So anyway, back to Texas.
Yeah.
I think Texas will finish fifth or worse. I, I'd like to, I'd like to say, hey, Texas is probably back. I mean, I don't like Texas by any stretch of imagination, but the conference is better and the conference is stronger when Texas is good and when Oklahoma is good, and for that matter, when West Virginia and Oklahoma State and Baylor are good. But without Texas being good, people kind of look away from the Big 12 a lot of times. They'll overlook the Big 12, especially if Oklahoma has a down year like last year. People overlooked the Big 12 and said, "Well, the Big 12 was down." Baylor's a pretty good team. Oklahoma State's a pretty good team, and so therefore you can't really overlook and say, "Well, they're not that good." Oklahoma was still Oklahoma. They just struggled on offense a little bit compared to usual.
To me, if
Texas this
can't
year,
go,
if they could come,
if they can't
go
go
ahead.
8-4, that's a disaster.
I agree, but I also think that West Virginia goes 8-4.
Yeah, I know you do. I don't
I
know
know
what
there's a
to
lot
think
of people
about.
saying 10-2. I don't think that. I think 8-4 is probably more like it. Might push out a 9-3. I don't see a 7-5. I don't. I can't find that on the schedule.
No? Let's look at this, Joey. You can't see
Okay.
possibly a loss to Pitt, beat Kansas, beat Towson, beat Virginia Tech, 3-1. Go to Texas, lose 3-2. Lose to Baylor, 3-3. Beat Texas Tech and TCU, 5-3. And then you've got Iowa State, Oklahoma, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State on the road. And you split those 4 games, you're 7-5.
Yeah, well, Iowa State is going to be down. They're not going to be as good as they were
Sure.
the last 2 years. Last year they weren't very good. Um, Oklahoma State has lost
They're
some
better than
players.
West
They're good. They're
Virginia.
going to still be good. They're going to still be good. Another thing too, you're not looking at is Baylor's coming to Morgantown. Baylor's never won in Morgantown. Never. They've come to
Okay.
Morgantown. They were ranked number 4 one year and like
Sure.
7 another year.
Sure. Well, if they keep going to Morgantown, they are going to win a game.
Oh yeah, they will win the game eventually, and it could be this year. I've got us losing to Baylor. I do have us losing to Baylor.
Okay. Well,
I don't.
what game
I
does West
think it will
Virginia
beat
lose?
Oklahoma.
Who's
I
West
think we'll beat
Virginia?
Oklahoma.
So West Virginia is
So
going to
I
lose to
think,
Baylor,
yeah,
and who
we'll lose
else?
to Baylor. I think we'll lose to Oklahoma State. I do think we'll
Okay.
lose that game. I think we'll beat Oklahoma. And another game is probably, I hate to say it, Texas. Even though we're playing in Austin, and those two teams kind of split things. West Virginia wins in Austin, Texas wins in Morgantown. Been that way since we joined the Big 12. But, I see Texas being pretty good this year, and I think they could beat West Virginia. And then throw in one more loss somewhere, maybe a Kansas State. Um, or an Iowa State, just simply because it's at Ames, it's in Ames. But I think we lose to Baylor. I think we lose to Oklahoma State. That's 2 losses that are almost guaranteed. I think Texas is a toss-up, and I think we can beat Oklahoma just
I
because
truly
we're
believe
dropped games.
I believe that West Virginia can lose any of these Big 12 games and they can win any of them.
Yeah,
But what I think will probably happen is that Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Oklahoma are losses, and going to Texas is a loss, and then there's another loss somewhere.
you're thinking Pitt.
Yeah,
You're
possibly.
thinking Pitt is lost.
I think most likely.
I just
Not
don't
most
see it.
likely, but I think it's a flip of a coin. I think it's a flip of the coin kind of game. And Pitt was better last year, but that was last year. That was with
It was a lot better last year. If we
great.
played them last year, they would have beat us like a drum. If we'd have played them last year, they would have beat us like a drum. But we didn't play last year. We're playing this year, and we didn't lose anybody really, and we've gained, and they lost a lot of players. So they didn't lose a lot of players. Don't get me wrong, but they lost two very, very, very productive players. One of the best quarterbacks in history, and one of the best receivers in history. So, so anyway, all right, man. Well, I will let you get to another call, but
right, Joey.
I just wish that I wish people could understand that West Virginia is not at the bottom of the barrel of the Big 12. I guarantee you they're not. You know, Neil Brown said it several times. We had Joe Manchin on Golden Voodoo show. And one question we asked Joe was, how did he think West Virginia would do this year? And he said, I spoke with Neil Brown a couple of days ago, and we was talking about that. And he said, and Neil Brown told me, he said, you just wait. We're going to surprise some people this year. We're going to really surprise some people. I think everybody's going to be pleasantly happy or something like that. And I believe that because the locker room, if you go up there, the locker room is so close together right now. They are really, they used to be under Holgerson. The locker room they got along, but they didn't hang out together. They didn't care to hang out together. They didn't learn each other's, daily lives or anything about each other. They just were on a team. Now they hang out together. You can't walk down the hallway. They're all sitting in the hallway talking about what they're going to do that evening. They all go to dinner together. It's a team now, a real team. And all the people that were causing a lot of problems on our team, Neil Brown has gotten rid of. He's pushed them out the door, or they've left because he's made it pretty miserable on them. So I'm happy about that. Now we've got a really good team that's ready to play ball. And this will be like, if we think about it, Neil Brown came in and COVID hit his second year. So he never really got his second year to work with the players like a normal coach would get. So the third year was his second year of working with players. This is really his third year, even though it's his fourth. I don't count the COVID year for anything. So I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
All right, Mark. Well, I'll let you go, man. Get somebody else.
All right, Joey. Thanks, man. Always good to see you.
All right. Take care, man.
As I was starting to say there at the end, we were kind of talking at the same time that I can appreciate the COVID excuses because I've made them for certain coaches and certain teams, but let's also understand that everyone had to deal with that. And I think first-year head coaches had to deal with it under the most adverse situations because, of course, they did not have the opportunity to meet with their teams as new head coaches with new coaching staffs, with new coordinators, with new terminology, trying to implement different culture. When I say culture, that runs the gamut of guidelines and procedures and processes and the way we do things, the way we act, the way we talk, the way the coach addresses the team, disciplines the team, has fun with the team, all of it, how we run practices. So somebody like, who was the first year head coach in 2020? Mike Norvell comes to mind. Had to deal with that under those circumstances. Now, Neil Brown was there the prior season. So he was in that mix with just about every other head coach in the country who already had a plan in place and a program in place. Now, it wasn't entrenched since it was only one season in the books. But I personally am not seeing the Vegas pessimism on West Virginia at 5.5 wins, but I'm also not seeing the overt optimism from West Virginia people on a team that has significantly upgraded at quarterback. But I don't know where they have significantly upgraded elsewhere. They lost one of their best wide receivers. Yeah, Dave Aranda certainly showing his worth as a tremendous coach. We know and knew at the time when he was hired in from LSU that his defensive mind was one of the best in the game. And he has certainly transitioned Baylor football. And a lot of people are high on Baylor long term because of Dave Aranda. Baylor has an interesting football history and a recent history that's intriguing as well. We know about all the off-field issues with Art Briles that contributed to the downfall of himself and the program, but it was pretty brief. Matt Rule was a tremendous hire. So the last two Baylor hires, consider this is how important it is to hire a great football coach, because then they hire great football coaches to be on the staff. So basically, by making that one great move to hire the man that's going to run the program, he is then going to turn around, if he is a great coach, and hire other great coaches on the staff. That is one of the prerequisites of being a leader. So for the leaders in the administration to hire the right head coach, and then for the right head coach to be able to surround himself with the right coaches, that is a prerequisite for being a great leader, is that you recognize talent and you surround yourself with the talent. So compare and contrast Miami's hirings over the last 20 years. Mark Richt aside, different situation. I've explained it many times why I consider that to be kind of a cross him off the list, because Mark Richt was one of the top 5 to 10 coaches in college football at Georgia. But I think we've seen after his departure from Miami why he may have had issues at Miami. Unfortunately, Richt aside, Larry Coker, bad hire. Randy Shannon, bad hire. Al Golden, bad hire. Manny Diaz, bad hire. Why do I know that they were bad hires and not just a bad fit for that program? Because none of those coaches ever achieved anything pre-Miami or post-Miami. Nothing. Matt Rule and Dave Aranda, and even if we discard what happened off the field with Art Briles, 3 consecutive tremendous hires for Baylor as football coaches. Art Briles, Matt Rule was a great hire. Dave Aranda seems to be a great hire. So there you take a program in Baylor that does not have some of the advantages that Miami has, but they obviously have a strong administration that recognizes and evaluates talent and leadership at a high level, and they make great hires. Miami makes bad hires. Now, Mario Cristobal would be the first coach. Again, I'm going to put Mark Richt in a different category because of what I've explained and explained elsewhere. Miami finally made a hire this time with Mario Cristobal in bringing somebody in that has proven that they can win at a high level on the Power 5 level. It would be difficult to find a program outside of the elite programs that have made 3 better hires. Again, in evaluating Art Briles, I'm just talking about football, better than Briles, Rule, and Aranda consecutively. Parker, thanks for the question. It's a general one, but hey, you get right to it. Is Oklahoma football going to be good this year or not? What is your definition of good? Are they going to be a good football team? Yes. I would be somewhat surprised if Oklahoma lost 4 games. 9-3 at least. I think Brent Venables, on the subject of coaching hires, was a tremendous hire. Has that been proven? No. He's one of the greatest defensive coordinators of our time, but it's not been proven as to whether he can run a football program. But by all early indications, he can run a football program. And I believe the man is supremely confident and humble at the same time. That is a difficult combination to find. Supremely confident and humble. It almost sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. It's not at all. Being humble just means that you respect people and you recognize that you're no better than anybody else and that we're all human beings and you don't think too highly of yourself. But you can be supremely confident in yourself and what other component you deem to be your power source in life, God, faith, family. And that's Brent Venables. I will be surprised if Brent Venables is not successful at Oklahoma. Steve Sarkeesian, on the other hand, I did not support that hire. I've got nothing personally against Steve Sarkeesian, nothing. But here we go again. I just gave you a number of examples at Miami of why coaching hires did not work. What has Steve Sarkeesian done? Washington is a program that is good enough to compete not just in the Pac-12, but nationally. This has been proven for decades. Ever since Don James made Washington a destination and a premier program in the country in the late 70s, what has Washington done? Well, for the next couple decades, they did nothing but compete for Pac-12 championships or Pac-10 championships at the time and go to the Rose Bowl over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Then they had some bad coaching hires. But now, more recently, Chris Peterson has showed us that Washington can again be a dominant program in the Pac-12 and can go to college football playoff appearances and go to Peach Bowls, Fiesta Bowls, Rose Bowls, 3 out of the last 5 seasons. So Steve Sarkeesian goes to Washington, and what does he do? Was it a disaster? No, it was not a disaster, but he didn't do a good job. He didn't do as good a job as his predecessor or his successor. Same thing at USC. And again, he went off the rails personally, but as a football coach and based on the results, USC was worse with Steve Sarkeesian than they were with Kiffin and Ogeron and Helton before and after Sarkeesian. Not extremely better, but they were better. So what has Steve Sarkeesian done to warrant the Texas job? In my eyes, nothing. That doesn't mean he's not going to succeed. Maybe Texas finally made a good hire because Tom Herman was a bad hire. Charlie Strong was a bad hire. What those two guys had done prior to Texas would have shown me that they would have been good hires, especially Tom Herman. I thought Tom Herman was an excellent hire by Texas. So if Charlie Strong fails there after Mac Brown had a turn in the wrong direction the final couple seasons, and then, of course, Tom Herman never succeeded at Texas. He had one good season, one real Texas kind of top 10 season, won the Sugar Bowl, made it to the Pac-12 championship game. And now we've got this Steve Sarkeesian situation. I think most programs in this country that have money and resources and facilities and everything in line for any capable coach to win, Texas is a different animal. I think you not only have to have that capable of a coach, but you have to have a coach who is so strong, his personality, and even more important than his personality, his foundation, his spine is so strong that he can go into Texas and he can look boosters and donors and collectives and legislators and administrators. He can look them in the eye and say, Get out of my football program. We got a nice little spot in the luxury box for you. Have a good time. We'll let you come down on the field after the game or before the game, and we'll take you through. We'll let you visit practice. We'll do all those niceties, but do not tell me how to run a football program. Texas has apparently not hired the guy that can do that. Mac Brown probably just did that effectively in not a blunt, straightforward way, but he was a good enough politician, and I say that in a positive way, good enough politician to be able to put those people in their place and massage the situations and still run his football program the way he wants and was effective running a football program. All right. Purdue is awesome. Wonder who this could be. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, Michael.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this afternoon, sir?
I am doing great. Purdue's awesome.
Yeah, I know, but hey, I'm just saying, even if stuff like that. Hey, I was trying to get your take about that last night about Cale Gundy, but I don't know if you talked about it yet last night or during the stream today.
Well, I typically don't talk about things I don't completely know about, but this is what I know. I know that Cale Gundy was in a team meeting, and a particular player was not paying attention, apparently, and he took his iPad and he read off what was on his iPad.
Mm-hmm.
This is my statement here. Should Cale Gundy have been more cognizant of what was written on that iPad before he let it come out of his mouth? It's almost like me reading super chats. There's been a time or two that I've read a super chat before my mind caught up with what was actually on the screen, and I didn't filter myself, and I let it fly, and it was something that needed to be addressed. So Cale Gundy, after 24 years as a head coach in Oklahoma, has been more careful.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he really realized what he was doing at the time or it was something that he knew in the moment he did something wrong and knew that he should have been more careful. But that aside, I think unless I'm getting something wrong, so I may not know the story as well as I should to make this statement, but based on what I know, and do you know anything more beyond what I just stated?
No, I don't. All I know is he just did. It was something that was going on during like a film session and stuff like that. So, and then I read it last night on Twitter and stuff. So,
yeah. So here's my statement, Michael, that unless there's something else involved that I'm not aware of, if it was simply Cale Gundy in a meeting with players and not appreciating that a player was checked out and kind of called them out and read what was on that iPad, and even though that was not a wise thing to do, not a cautionary thing to do, it is beyond insane in my viewpoint that he should have been fired for that. I don't care what was said, and I have an idea. It's to figure out what word came out of his mouth. We have gone off the rails in this society, canceling and firing people for mistakes. It's unbelievable. We should be firing all sorts of other people in this society who are corrupt and doing horrible jobs, mostly because of their corruption and greed and being horrible people. But we fire people for making minute mistakes. That's what we're in the business in this country of doing, and it's not right. It's insane.
Yeah. And another thing I was wanting to let you know is Purdue took a big hit on offense today with losing with one of their tight ends for the season today with a knee injury.
Who is that? Do you know?
Garrett Miller.
Okay. I was not aware.
Yeah, that just came down about a half hour ago. I knew he got hurt because I was at the practice earlier today, but I didn't know how bad it was and stuff. But he's done for the season. But as I say, next man up for Purdue, so that should be Zion Septo, I think, who's a true freshman. But we'll see what happens. Other than that, I was just wondering stuff. So, previews starting to come out yet more often, or or is that a work in progress still?
In terms of week 1 previews or team previews?
Team previews.
So you obviously want a Purdue team preview.
It would be nice, but you don't have to.
Well, I would love to do a Purdue preview. My issue is that we've got a little college football channel here. It's not a big, massive, major juggernaut of a channel. It's just our little Voice of College Football channel that we're trying to build. And therefore, sometimes I produce these videos and nobody watches them. And if I put a lot of research and put together a really strong Purdue video, I hate to be pessimistic, but I am going to guarantee that people are not going to watch it.
Yeah, but hey, I did send you some. I know because you said you could do some week 1 previews and stuff like that. I did send you some names that and directed like where I DM'd you and stuff like that. I didn't know if you got a chance to get in touch with those people yet, or are you still in the process of getting that done?
I started doing my own week 1 previews. I did Florida and Utah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So those won't be coming up for a couple weeks yet.
Well, I posted a Utah-Florida preview.
Okay. I was wondering.
And as soon as we can get to Ohio State, Notre Dame, and get to Georgia, Oregon, they would be 2 of the other priorities. Penn State, of course, as well.
Yeah. Are you doing anything with Nebraska and Northwestern? The week 0?
If I can get to it, but we talk Nebraska football on the Nebraska channel all the time.
Yeah.
So we basically are previewing Nebraska every Tuesday for an hour.
All right. Last thing before I let you go. When is the all-important top 25 that actually makes sense poll come out?
Well, let's understand this. And Michael, I appreciate that you're invested and concerned about our content delivery here. So the top 25 that actually makes sense, and I would be interested to know if anybody's in the chat that didn't watch and wasn't around for last football season, that you're in for a treat. You're going to be delivered each and every Sunday, folks, a top 25 that actually makes sense. But anyway, so once we've got a game played, Michael, then that's when the top 25 that actually makes sense kicks in, because I need information. I need results.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense because of the results. Now, before that, I'll deliver a top 25 that's just my opinion of the 25 best teams in America. Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. All right, Mark, it's after 6, so it means it's dinner time, so I'm going to get going, but we'll catch you in the rest of the stream. Take care, man.
I appreciate it.
See ya.
D4 Sports, give me just 1 second. So I accidentally punched him in, because if I punch somebody out at the same time that they punch themselves out, then it automatically moves the next person in. So anyway, for Michael's sake, I hope Purdue has a phenomenal banner season, because I got to tell you, we've got Clemson fans here with Huffer Billy Paw. Thank you so much for that statement and supporting me, Huffer Billy Paw. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mark, for saying it out loud. Of course, we will always say I'm not ashamed or afraid to speak the truth here. The only reason I don't rant and rail on it is because we've got a football show. So I try to stick to football. But if we have to make a statement in this insane landscape of society right now, then we need to do that sometimes. But Michael, my goodness, I would love to see Purdue take off and have a great season, because we have our Clemson fans, Ohio State fans, Alabama fans, of course, on and on and on, Georgia fans last year that get their way all the time. Win, 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 win. But man, I love to see, we had Connor Johnson on the show last night. Connor Johnson, big Oregon State fan. Michael, big Purdue fan. We've got Kansas State fans. I don't realize how many different types of fans and fans of lesser teams that we have until I take a poll like I did over the past several months to get, now we got to get bots out of the chat, that people respond. And I find out that there's all sorts of people out there that root for certain teams, that watch on a regular basis. They just don't comment much or at all. and so I'm not aware that they're there. But it's great to see fans of lesser teams. All right, we've got 3 callers on the line, so let's get to them right now. Huffer Billy Paul, thank you again so much for the contribution there. D4 Sports, how's it going, man? I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. Just want to say thank you for letting myself and Matthew Miller do the Texas season preview on your channel, man. That was exciting and had a blast doing it.
Yeah, I caught quite a bit of that, and it seemed like you guys were chopping it up and having a good time and laying down some good knowledge on Texas football.
Yeah, yes, sir. I had a blast. I wanted to get your opinion on a few things. First of all, I think Texas goes 8-4 this year. 9-3 is our ceiling. I do think we take out Joey Foster's West Virginia team handily. Sorry, Joey, but when Texas and Oklahoma leave, who do you think takes over as the flagship programs?
That's the problem. Nobody takes over. I don't see any one program distinguishing itself. Maybe for a season or two, maybe there's a TCU of 2013, 14, 15. There's a Baylor of that same point that elevate to 11-1 kind of status for 1 year, 2 years. Maybe Cincinnati can do that. Well, that's going to be fascinating. If Cincinnati still has Luke Fickell and they're still operating the same level of program, to see them transition from group of 5, well, all 4 of them, but especially Cincinnati because of how good they've been for the past couple seasons, to see them transition to Big 12 football and have to play a legitimate opponent almost every week and see if they can be that good. I think it's going to be a fascinating football conference. But the problem is most college football fans, I'm speaking to people in the chat right now, and this is not a knock on you, but this is just the way it is. You're obsessed with the playoff and the top 5 teams in America. So this league's going to turn off most of the country. And it's going to be stacked with really good teams, like top 15 at top. And I'm not saying that Oklahoma State, Baylor, those kind of schools will never elevate to a top 5 status. They did last year to near top 5 status. Baylor, Oklahoma State playing to the wire in the Big 12 championship game. But generally, you are going to have a glut of top 20 to 40 teams in the country.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody if anybody in the conference has the rich tradition, I think it's now West Virginia once we leave.
Well, see, that statement that you just made is going to take a lot of people back, but it's on the money. West Virginia does have the best football history of any school left in the conference.
Yeah, 100% agree. Another question I have for you is the Texas quarterback situation. I know Hudson Card is getting first team reps, but like I said on the show the other night, when they bring these recruits in, and they brought Ajay Hall, and they brought they were campaigning for Jordan Addison. It wasn't Hudson Card that was the face that was taking pictures with those guys. It was Quinn Ewers. Do you think that's an indication of the quarterback battle, or what do you think about that situation?
Well, I think that we would I think all of us as sports fans, to have a situation in which the head coach is making a determination based strictly on who is the better player and who gives my team the best chance to win. But if there would be a political decision to be made in this quarterback race, that would be Texas would be the first school that I would list on the top line as to making that type of decision, unfortunately.
Yeah, and what you spoke on, is Sark going to be that type of coach to be able to keep the politics out of it? Like I said, you spoke on it earlier, and is he going to feel the pressure to start Quinn, even if Hudson's out playing him? That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we're all enamored with Quinn Ewers, and based on what I've seen on YouTube clips and on Twitter, we should be. He's got exceptional arm talent, and he is physically better than Hudson Card, but Hudson Card is no slouch. What was he, a top 7 or 8 quarterback in the country?
Yeah, he was a top dual threat quarterback. But what people don't understand about Hudson Card is he played receiver for Charlie Brewer, who went on to play at Baylor and then Utah, and then he switched over to quarterback for his senior year. And that's why he was the number one dual threat quarterback coming out. But it's definitely going to be interesting. And I know, what did Joey say, that we were going to finish fifth in the Big 12?
Now, is that possible? Sure, it's possible, but that's got to be the floor.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the floor. I personally think that the way the season goes, with everything that Oklahoma lost, with everything that Oklahoma State lost on defense, their D coordinator, I know they bring in Derek Mason, but it's going to be interesting. I think that's the absolute floor, but I think the ceiling is we go 8-4, 9-3, and meet Baylor in back-to-back weeks for the Big 12 championship.
Okay. I see that the preseason coaches poll was released today. I didn't know that. I'll have to dive into that. All right, D4. Anything else going on?
No, that'll be it, buddy.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
You too. All right, let's keep this moving. Yes, I saw a listing of key college football dates throughout August the other day, and I probably should have taken that, put that in my calendar, because I wanted to respond to the AP and the coaches poll release as soon as possible. Did not see that the coaches poll was released today, but we'll get on that. Right now, we got the real MVP here. How's it going, man?
It's going. How about you, Mark?
I'm good.
Well, I was going to talk about the coaches poll because something insane has happened. Okay, some coach has lost the plot completely. And it involves the Big 12. Texas. Some coach has as not a top 5 team, not even a top 3 team, but as the number 1 team in the country.
Really?
Yes. Mark, is Texas, I can't believe I'm even asking this, is Texas the number 1 team in the country entering the season?
Well, see, here's the difference between the criticism that I would have for a preseason poll versus an in-season poll. As soon as there are in-season polls, I will be all over the AP and the coaches polls when they make stupid decisions. And they make them every week practically during the course of any season, where I'll be able to say, this team's 4-0, this team's 3-1. The 4-0 team beat the 3-1 team. Why are they still ranked below them? Well, they just really like the 3-1 team, but it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. But it's a preseason poll. They can rank these teams wherever they want. I don't have any issue with it.
I get that, but I mean, you got to admit it's kind of out there. It's a little bit out there. It was.
Well, they're going to step on the field and play football. So he's either going to be validated or he's going to be shown to be a knucklehead that doesn't know what he's talking about. But
well, whoever this coach is, I don't know who voted for who voted for it, but if they do somehow beat Alabama, then he is the smartest coach in all college football.
Well, predictions are difficult. Some people are good at them. Some people aren't so good at them. And the people that aren't good at them, that doesn't mean that they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to retract what I said a couple sentences ago. Every so often I do say something that I don't agree with just because I'm on here 30 or 40 hours. And every so often I let something fly that I don't necessarily agree in. So regardless of whether Texas turns out to be this amazing comeback story or they're just another Texas season of 6-6 or whatever, I think that this coach has every right to put whomever he wants until they play games. I would be tempted to put Kansas 1, Rutgers 2, Illinois 3. It's a preseason poll. Nobody's played.
I mean, I guess that's fair enough. Can we get James Madison some love? Let's put him at number 1 since they're brand new.
Yeah, we don't need to clog it up with a bunch of Power 5 teams. Sure.
The highest ranked Group of 5 team was at 22, and it was Cincinnati.
Okay.
You got any problems with that?
Well, okay, so I'm gonna veer away from my stance about anybody can rank anybody wherever they want, because then that means I wouldn't have a problem with anything. So let's brush that aside. Now we're going to talk reality. Okay. Who's high, who's low? Notre Dame at 5, huh? I thought I was going to be one of the few people that was going to be that high on Notre Dame. Okay. Utah at 8. I don't necessarily think Utah is the 8th best team in the country, but playing in the Pac-12, they may finish that high. This 9, 10, 11 of Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State's interesting, of course, all being in the same conference. That's going to be a heck of a race, the Big 12. Got NC State lurking at 13 and Michigan State at 14 as kind of outliers in their respective conferences. USC, there are certain teams that I'm sure had greater disparities in some people being super high and other people wanting to see something. And I got to think Texas is in that category and USC's in that category. I got to think maybe even Miami's in that category. So we see Pitt at 16, Miami at 17. There's Texas at 18 with a number 1 vote. Now, it's public record as to who made that vote for Texas. So somebody's going to find that out soon. And we're going to see something come out in the next couple of days, I would think. Wake, Wisconsin. They're the Wildcats of Kentucky at 21. Cincinnati lost 9 NFL draft selections. They're at 22. I think that's fine. I don't think Cincinnati's that good. I don't think they're the 22nd best team in the country. They're not as good as more than half the teams in the SEC.
I think I like Houston to do better than Cincinnati this season. So I would swap Houston and Cincinnati.
I would tend to agree with you because of the quarterback situation with Clayton Tune, but I would tend to not agree with you because of the coaching situation. I have a whole lot more trust in Luke Fickell over Dana Holgorsen.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. It'll play itself out on the field, Mark, as you have said. Now, there's some teams I was kind of surprised. Purdue, they didn't make the list, I believe. I was kind of surprised they didn't make it.
They're not even close. Oh, yeah. Oh, to your point, they're not. Yeah, they didn't even receive 1 vote.
Wow. Especially with them ending the season last year at 9-4, and most of their star players from 2021 sat out the Music City Bowl, and they still did amazing on offense.
Yeah.
So I was surprised with that. Would you have Purdue ranked in the top 25?
I may.
Okay. Well, would they at least be borderline?
Oh, absolutely. Like we're looking at like another 20 teams. They're not in the top 40. Oh, they got 2 votes. They got 2. There they are. I didn't see them, but they're still like 40 something. They're better than that.
Well, do you think if they beat Penn State, they will be ranked in the top 25?
I hope so. They're going to be ranked in my top 25 if they beat Penn State.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand it because Purdue has been solid for a number of years, and they had a great season last year, and they're not horrible. They're not a 4-8, 3-9 team that all of a sudden popped up to 9-4.
Sure.
I mean, they've been they've upsetted some really good teams. They've been on people's radar. It's not like a Coastal Carolina or UTSA type thing.
Somebody's voting that Iowa State is in the top 25. People are voting that Army's in the top 25. And to your point, as many people think that Coastal Carolina belongs in the top 25 as Purdue. So here we go with the top 25s here. All right. Interesting. Florida State got a vote.
Good for them. That might be the only vote they get all season, but
It might be.
I think they'll have a good season. I like the way they finished off 2021. They could have mailed it in after starting 0-4, but they fought back and had
True.
a chance if they beat Florida to make a bowl game. Now, I know nobody cares about bowl games anymore, but that would be impressive.
Yeah, I do.
I know. I'm just talking
There's
about
a few
the
of
general
us.
thing.
Yeah.
So, but I've noticed those helmets behind you, Mark. Why do
Yep.
you have future SEC helmets behind you?
You know what's funny is that we're up to about 31 helmets, I think is the count, and we have no Big 12 helmets except for Oklahoma and Texas, who are, of course, short timers. That's it. The Big 12 will not be represented here at the Voice of College Football.
Dang, that's sad. Well, Mark, that's all I got for you. Hit the like and subscribe button. A nice Kentucky blue t-shirt today.
It is, isn't it? But since we are talking about the Big 12, I have chosen to rep Kansas.
Oh, I thought you were going to say BYU.
BYU. Very nice. All right, Darrell. All right, let's keep it going here. We got our man Lawrence here. Unfortunately, we had somebody else waiting, but they just dropped off the line right before I was going to click them in. Lawrence is on the line. What's going on, Lawrence?
Hey, Mark, I'm well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I see Lawrence on the screen. Anyway, regardless, on the screen that only I can see. How's it going today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. What's on your mind?
I'm just noticing this early season poll, and it's all reputation. I mean, a lot of these teams got players that aren't returning from last year, and so this is all reputation. Like Alabama, number 1. Like, okay, that's all reputation. Like Georgia's number 3. They didn't defend the champions. I mean, disrespected.
Well, it's not all
Notre Dame. You don't think so?
Well, Alabama might have had the best football team in America last year. They lost the championship in the last 4 minutes, and they bring back the Heisman Trophy winner and the best defensive player in America and a whole slew of other guys.
Yeah, they also did they lose to A&M last year too? What was their regular season loss? Then they have one.
A&M. Yes.
A&M, okay, they're number 7. So I mean, the SEC is tough. We all know that. So 3 of them being in the top 10, it's fine. I'll tell you, the sleeper for me is Baylor, though.
Okay.
I like Baylor a lot this year.
I don't know if
I think they got a lot of momentum coming in, and I'm going to pick them to win the Big 12.
Okay. Well, the media picked Baylor to win the Big 12, and they won the Big 12 last year. So I don't know that that's really a sleeper.
Well, I mean, Oklahoma's still ranked above them, though. I mean, is Oklahoma really more talented than Baylor this year coming in, you think?
They're ranked above them by 1 spot. Baylor was the media pick to win the Big 12. I don't think they're a sleeper. I don't think any of the top 4 teams in the Big 12 would I consider sleepers for the Big 12 championship.
Well, what do you think about
is West Virginia?
West Virginia? Are they making the top 25?
No.
Okay. They might be. I mean, USC being 15 is all the coaching, right? That's all coach at 15.
Well, they brought in some of the best players in the country.
Yeah, but chemistry might be an issue. I mean, they're all, they brought in 42 transfers, something like that, over 40.
You're right. It could be, but college football coaches and programs are going to have to deal with this on a larger scale now because there's going to be more player movement. I think that's fair for USC.
You think 15 is fair? Okay. I would have had him in the top 25. I'm not sure if I had him 15. I probably would have had him, between 20 and 25 somewhere.
Okay.
I mean, it's an interesting list here. I mean, what about Miami, though? 17? Are you serious?
Is that too high?
I think so.
Okay.
I like
weren't
Kentucky in the top 25. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Last-
I like Kentucky, too, at 21.
Meaning that's a good spot for them?
Yeah, for them, yeah. I think they play a tough schedule. And they don't shut down in games. Like they might get rolled, but they never quit. I really do think Cincinnati's too low. People don't know about the quarterback. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sure. Once we start to get into the group of five, to me, it's a really difficult comparison to make between group of five and the Power Five. Because Cincinnati's, they're going to play Arkansas and Indiana. But other than that, the schedule doesn't compare with the rest of these teams we're looking at. So whatever Cincinnati's record is not comparable to a Power Five record.
That's fair. I agree with you on that. They play AAC teams. They probably should have got a second Power Five game on that schedule.
They do.
But the tasty matchup. Oh, they got Indiana, don't they?
Yeah. And
yeah.
Arkansas.
So they got another one. You're right. Arkansas is a critical game out the gate for both teams. I think that's going to define their seasons. What about Ole Miss? You like Ole Miss at 24?
Yeah, Ole Miss lost quite a bit, and their offensive coordinator. But I think Ole Miss is a talented team. Of course, the quarterback spot has to be filled, and it looks like Jackson Dart's the guy, but he's never been a starting quarterback for more than a couple games.
Who do you think that single vote is for Texas at number one? Who do you think that's going to end up being? You have any idea?
I really have no idea. I don't know the coaches. How many votes do we have? We've got like 65 or 70. So 65 or 70 coaches vote for this. And I don't even know how many of those coaches actually vote versus just handing it to the sports information director and having them vote. We'll find out.
What about the Wolf? Yeah, we're going to find out soon. What about the Wolfpack at 13? I just don't know too much about NC State to be like, are they really a top 15 team coming in?
Well, they bring back pretty much the entire defense. That was not a great defense, but a really good defense. And their quarterback, Devin Leary, is probably the best quarterback in the conference and one of the best in the country. 35 TDs, 5 picks. And, NC State's a really good team.
Will they win the ACC, though?
Probably not, but they could.
Think it's going to be Clemson?
If Clemson doesn't produce more offense, then NC State's going to win the ACC. I think they're the second best team in the conference.
You think Clemson at 4 is fair?
That all depends on them figuring out a passing game. And the reason I just don't say quarterback, I think it's more than just the quarterback, the issues they had last year. I think if any team that could challenge for a national championship is the weakest, it's Clemson. If they can go back to throwing the football the way they did for 7 or 8 years with Boyd and Lawrence and Watson, anything close to that, then they're a top 4 or 5 team in the country. If they don't, then they may not win the ACC again, and they're a top 15 team.
Okay. What about Michigan at 7 or 6? Excuse me.
I think that Michigan may have a record that justifies being number 6 in the country, but I don't necessarily think they are the 6th best team in the country. Meaning they've got 3 cupcakes out of conference, and they've got a pretty light schedule.
Will Notre Dame justify the 5th spot?
See, what's funny is after we get past the top 4, I think from 5 to 15, and maybe even a few spots lower, those are all roughly the same team. There's not much difference between the next 10 spots, 5 to 15. Not much. At least
what about
where we sit right now, before anybody plays any football and shows us anything, I can't draw a huge distinction between Notre Dame, Michigan, Texas A&M, Utah, Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Oregon, NC State, even Michigan State, USC, and possibly even Pitt, Miami, and Texas. Throw Wisconsin in on that.
Yeah, you think Wisconsin's too low at 20? So you're doing 5 through 20 now?
Maybe. I do think that there's a bit of a drop off. I think Pitt, Miami, Texas. Again, Texas is a huge wild card. Pitt, Miami, Wake, Wisconsin, Kentucky. I think that they're a cut below those other teams somewhat. But if Notre Dame played Oklahoma State, well, they just played in the Fiesta Bowl. But if they played them again, I don't know who's going to win that game. Or Michigan and Michigan State, Utah and NC State. If these teams played tomorrow, just because they're 10 spots different in the polls, I don't necessarily think the teams that are ranked higher are any better.
Yeah, so that I agree. The New Year's Six is going to be wide open this year. I think Ohio State will take care of Notre Dame week 1. It's going to be a matter of whether or not Notre Dame can come back and win every other game.
Yep.
Because they could very easily lose in the second game and be out the playoff picture.
All right, man. Well, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Yep, take it easy.
All right. We know Hufferbilly has been waiting for a time to get on here, so I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I apologize. I have a HVAC guy here, and every time it seems like the timing is perfect for me to have to stop what I'm doing and interact. So apologize. But I'm listening to a lot of this, and everybody's spot on. I mean, for the most part, the thing that I was curious about, what happens if the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or the ACC shows out this year with a team? And I'll give you the Big 12 ones that I think will show out: Baylor, Oklahoma State, maybe Oklahoma; Pac-12, Utah, maybe Oregon; the ACC, Clemson, Miami, NC State, UNC, or Pitt. If they show out and they become a factor for the playoffs with all this conference realignment, does that tell people that the conferences that are out there are not dead yet after all this?
Well, as it pertains to the college football playoff this year, if the committee's doing its job, then they are paying close attention to non-conference games. So by showing out, this is how I interpret that. Baylor's got a game against BYU, I believe, non-conference. Oklahoma plays Nebraska. Texas plays Alabama. Nobody expects Texas to win, but let's say they play a really strong game against the best team in the country or number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. But in total, the Big 12 plays really well non-conference. Then that obviously justifies whomever wins the conference, because the conference has gone out and shown that it's competitive and strong against the other competition in college football. Therefore, ties should be broken that way. If we've got a glut of 12-1 teams vying for playoff spots, then the conference that is strongest, the resume is going to be built based on those non-conference games.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest, I guess the funniest thing, and I'll say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, all the realignment is, oh, well, the Pac-12's dead, the Big 12's dead, the ACC's dead. No, they're not. And this year will probably be one of the most competitive years you've seen in college football in recent times. We got parity everywhere. And so I expect this to be one of those statement seasons where it says, no, the Big 12's not dead, ACC's not dead, and the Pac-12's not dead. Even though you've got USC and UCLA leaving, they're not dead. Oklahoma, Texas is leaving. The Big 12's not dead. And I hope that's the case. I mean, I am kind of hoping a little bit, but more because it would make things interesting. It would make everybody go, maybe we don't have to always put our eggs in these two baskets. That's all.
Well, when you say that there's parity in college football, I agree with you and disagree with you at the same time. I don't necessarily see, until proven otherwise, the parity at the top of college football. So the top 4 or 5 teams, I still believe, are the top 4 or 5 teams. Now, after that, I think we have tremendous parity.
We have a lot of opportunity for somebody to come up and raise up and say, hey, I'm the next, team. Baylor's seriously, they're being serious. And Utah isn't a joke. Okay. Miami's coming. So these are what I'm saying is these folks can make a statement this year, and I expect them to. One of the 3 or 4 will do this, right? And it, much to my chagrin, because Clemson may be one of the casualties, but at the same time, I would love to see another player show up. And, just somebody different, right?
So last year, that was Michigan and Cincinnati. And so even though the result of the playoff was Georgia-Alabama for a second time, and it's felt the same, it felt scripted, it felt anticlimactic, we did have 2 different teams in the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, I still think Cincinnati's got a little bit more in the box to push here, but at the same time, I know they're probably not going to be able to reload like Alabama or Georgia or even Clemson or OSU. But that being said, I think that these other kids or these other programs are going to be really hungry, and they'll push some folks. But that being said, here's the one. I'm going to switch gears on you off of this. So Joey and I were on a stream last night, and he was defending Penn State. Okay. And my argument is if Franklin doesn't get Penn State to be in contention, maybe not this year, but definitely by next year, if he doesn't start showing some wins in the conference titles and things like that, I think he's going on a hot seat. And Joey's like, no way. I'm like, yeah, I think so. Because Penn State ain't going to put up with that.
Well, if there's any reason why he wouldn't be on the hot seat, it would be because of buyout and dollars. But football-wise, he should be on the hot seat. He's produced 2 marginal seasons, and that's to be kind. He's 11-11 the last 2 years. But they've got a talented roster, and he's got all the advantages in the world for a great institution, campus, facilities, money. They're paying him $1 zillion. He just signed a contract extension that's crazy. He's being paid like a coach that should be competing for championships.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so he better get it done, is all I'm pointing out to folks. But anyway, I'm going to let you go because I know my HVAC guy's about to come back down and talk to me. But thank you for all you do. You're a great show. Great show.
I appreciate the call. Reasonable Gump, and then either an SEC team or the Sucknuts will win the championship and prove that no, there is no parity. And there is not. There's parity underneath the elite shelf, and that's fun, but they're not close enough to push through. LSU had a great year in 2019. That was an aberration for what they've been the last decade. LSU fans don't want to hear that, but LSU has been a top 25 program for the last 10 years and no better than that. They've been a top 15 to 25 team that loses 3 or 4 games a year. They had one magical year, Joe Burrow, Joe Brady. Okay. Take them out of the mix for that one magical season out of 8 playoff seasons. And to varying degrees, Alabama, of course, being the strongest, the most, the best, 3 teams have won meaningful games, now 4 with Georgia. So you got 4 teams winning all the meaningful games, all the games in the playoff. Alabama, of course, the most. Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia. 4 teams win all the games and play all the games. I put it down like this a couple of years ago, and it continues to this day, that think about this. The only thing that's happened in the playoff for 8 years is that the SEC beats Clemson, the SEC beats Ohio State beats the SEC, Ohio State beats Clemson, the SEC beats Clemson, Clemson beats the SEC. Those are the only things that happen. That's all that's happened in the playoff. Those 3 configurations. That's the entire playoff. Every game. Nobody's beat Clemson but the SEC and Ohio State. Nobody's beaten the SEC except for Clemson and Ohio State. Nobody's beaten Ohio State except for Clemson and the SEC. That's all that's happened. That's the entire playoff. All right, DeAndre's here. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mark? How you doing? Can you hear me?
Well, I got you.
Okay. So, I was looking at the polls also. I'm sorry for the irritating noise. So what I noticed is that there are 5 ACC schools in there. So according to this poll, that means that the ACC is the second strongest conference this year.
Well, if that's an indication, then those people are most likely wrong.
Yeah. So I went back and watched your Clemson show with Bobby and Jason, and we all pretty much said the same thing. I've been said that before. I heard either one of them say it, and I think me and Jason's been on the show. Our offensive line, the wide receivers, injuries, and things like that. But one thing, and the variety of offense got still. We saw that, and I think you heard me point this out when we lost to LSU. All the receivers ran the same routes. Even though, I know we had Amari Rodgers, who looks like he's going to be Green Bay top receiver this coming up year. However, I would like to see Clemson, Tony Stovall, who we ain't get to see play last year, Spector, and William Taylor. I like to see them on the floor, on the ground at the same time. I like to see Clemson go 5 wide. I remember when Baylor was pretty good a couple years ago. They just did a lot of quick passes and got the ball out the quarterback's hand and then, went fast. I would like to see Clemson get kind of back to that. I know you still got to run Will Shipley, but I just want to see the ball out the hand faster instead of all these post routes or deep ins and outs and stuff like that. Because I think that would do them some benefit by the amount of depth they have at wide receiver this year. I mean, Clemson wide receivers are very talented. Unproven, but very talented. Nagata, for his career, doesn't even have over 1,000 yards. And that's because he's been injured so much, and he had better receivers in front of him. So I would like to see that happen. Is that Nagata them go 5 wide and get some of that speed and space. And you still can run the ball. You keep Shipley out there. But I never got this putting one tight end, one running back. And I know people say they do it, but they don't know what people are going to run. And we've been doing it since Deshaun Watson. But I just think we just need to get some speed out there. Tire them guys out. Get to the second unit on their defense. And, you get the ball to Will Shipley and Foster and Page and have them go. Go out there too. Another issue that I have. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark. Were you saying something?
I was going to say it's an interesting point that you make because with the problems that DJ had last year, you give him less that he doesn't have to read the defense, and he has less to think about. He doesn't have to stand back there and pat the ball and think about what he has to do. He knows I'm going here, and it's boom. It's drop, step, boom, get the ball out of my hand.
Right. And if you go back to some of the games that they played this year when the offense approved, and I know it was versus Connecticut and Wake Forest, but the games that he approved in, that's what he did, was got the ball out faster. Sometimes you just, hey, like, let's get you in the rhythm. Hey, quick pass to Will Taylor speed, get out of Stovall speed, get out to Spector. I don't know how fast Spector is, but I know everybody's putting him at the slot. But get it out there, and then when those corners come up, go hit them with Nagata and E. Williams or one of the Collins guys deep. And that's what I'm looking for this year, more variety out of the offense. Because since Tyler Winfrow's done left, and Tyler Winfrow's an amazing player. We see what he's doing in the pros right now. Mm-hmm. Clemson has not recovered from not having Tyler Winfrow. Tyler Winfrow destroyed Alabama as a redshirt freshman. And, you know, and he did it against two guys. I think D. Miller was the first-round pick by the Bengals. And was it Marlon Humphrey? So he destroyed them. So, and once you get back to that, give them the ball. I mean, Tyler Winfrey pretty much, you know, I know Deshaun Watson did his thing, but, you know, I think Deshaun Watson's performances versus Alabama was way better than anything that Trevor Lawrence did against Alabama. And I think the defensive line and the defense really won that game with the amount of talent that they had. Not taking it away from Trevor Lawrence, but I just really think that's what you had those years was somebody with speed, somebody quick. I mean, look at what Tom Brady did with those two guys he had that were slot receivers, and I think that's what Clemson was missing the last couple years. Even against LSU and Ohio State, it's like, wow, you know, it's easy to guard. It was easy to guard Clemson. And you just saw it going that way. Just get the speed out on the field. And I think Clemson has one of the hardest schedules by what I see coming up this year. Wake Forest, North Carolina State, Miami, Notre Dame. And I think Florida State is going to be decent this year. They're going to improve for Florida State standards.
One of the hardest schedules in the ACC.
In the ACC, huh? Is it harder than Ohio State's? No. Is it just as hard as Georgia's? I don't know who Georgia plays in our conference this year. Oregon, but it's harder than Michigan. Huh?
Oregon and Georgia Tech.
Okay. Well, Oregon's going through a transition. So, I mean, I can go to that. Kentucky, they're going to be good. You don't know what Florida's going to be. So, South Carolina, you still don't know what they're going to be. I mean, the teams that Clemson got to play are pretty much proven. We already talked about Michigan and how their first, 6 games are terrible. I know they still got to play Ohio State and Penn State, and then they got to play Iowa. But I really think that Clemson has a very hard schedule this year, and and I think Louisville. Did that receiver transfer from Louisville to Alabama? I can't remember his name, but I know they were talking about that because they was complaining about them cutting in. So So I don't know how good Louisville is going to be, but I know Louisville's Cunningham was talking junk saying that they should have beat Clemson last year, and they possibly should have. There's a lot of teams that Clemson should have lost to, because usually, and I want to look at this from a game control situation. Clemson controlled the game a lot against some of those teams they lost to. I mean, they had close games with. They just the offense couldn't perform then. Who you putting out there?
Louisville.
Oh, okay. But hey, man, it's gonna be a.
I'm starting to talk about Louisville, so I went with Louisville.
Okay. Yeah.
You got Clemson now. How about that?
Georgia Tech. Yeah, I mean Georgia Tech. Man, I can't believe Syracuse lost their quarterback for the year. Yeah, that's crazy.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's gone. So that run before Wake Forest is gonna be pretty difficult. NC State's gonna be good, and Boston College is very underrated. I know they lost their offensive lineman that was supposed to be top ACC player. Boston College has a very good quarterback. Think about how good Phil Colbert was a couple years ago. Everybody was talking about him. So I know that they were talking about Pittsburgh should take him if he comes out and then he gets hurt. And that Flowers guy at the slot, he's pretty good. So Boston College is very underrated, and they got a pretty good head coach. So I think Clemson has a tough game. That stretch, Wake Forest State, Boston College, Florida State on the road. I think those four are very hard. That's why I say I think their schedule is a little bit harder than what most people say it is this year.
Okay, DeAndre.
All right, Mark.
Have a good one. Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
2 more calls. Let's get these 2 in. 2 of our favorites. Here we go. Tim's here. Tim, how's it going?
It's going good. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I just called in. I mean, we've already had two Clemson calls, 2 great Clemson calls, but I just wanted to follow up on that. I was talking to Jordan Bowman last couple of nights in our after hours chats.
Yeah.
By the way, if you guys aren't subscribed, you need to get into those Discord chats we have. You're on Mark's Patreon, but we talked about a couple of times he's told me that I didn't know. I just really thought DJ was just terrible last year, but it's not. It's kind of a. I liked what Dabo said about the fact that he was a 5-star recruit for a reason, and a lot of people forget he probably has one of the strongest arms in the country, and just what DeAndre just talked about, they had guys, the receivers kind of let them down. They don't have, like Bowen was saying, that they don't have a guy like Renfro, that slot receiver is going to pick up those hard third downs, things like that. I think Bo Collins, he's also a St. John Bosco alum that's on Clemson right now. Yep. I think his sophomore year, man, people are going to start, they'll know his name. He was a big recruit. USC wanted him really bad. He followed DJ to Clemson. And I really think that the offense is going to turn around if they can keep that offensive line healthy. One thing I didn't know also is Jordan told me they had 6 different offensive line lineups last year because of injuries, because of issues. So people are saying that, it's all in DJ's head, but realistically, if you can't trust your blind side, if you can't see all that stuff, then it's going to be hard for you to sit in that pocket. You might get happy feet, and make some bad throws along with a messed up arm. So I think their defense will carry them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That front 7, the front 7 is going to be crazy. Simpson, Breesy, and who's the other defensive lineman? They have all Americans, preseason all Americans all over that front 7.
Yeah.
So that should carry them pretty well. The issue going back to what's going on in Oklahoma, I think in our society, it's not about a cancel culture. It's about when you have a coach, you're representing more than just yourself. If you're out in the street, you want to make a stupid, bigoted comment, then more power to you to be an idiot. That's fine.
Well, wait a minute. Did he make a bigoted comment, or was he reading something that was bigoted off a computer screen? Those are
Mark,
those are 2 separate things.
If I saw something in chat, this is just a chat on the internet that was ignorant, I'm not going to read that word out because again, that word charged.
Absolutely not. Yes,
so
I agree with that.
He didn't have to read it. Did someone force him to read that?
Still, it's just insane to me how we are in an insane place in this country where things like this happen. Then we have criminals on the street that walk into retail stores and swing baseball bats and shatter glass and steal whatever they want, and we just let them go. This is where we are in our country right now. We demonize people for making mistakes that are hardworking, good, solid people. And I don't know Cale Gundy. I'm just talking about based on all knowledge that I have about that anyone in public would have about how he's represented himself as a professional. We have people like that make mistakes, and we demonize them, and we cancel them, get rid of them, fire them, you're done. And then we have criminals running rampant in this country, and we just allow it. We just let it go. It's insane.
Well, hold on, Mark. I don't think Oklahoma's going to hire a guy that bumped into, knocked over a convenience store and hit some people. I think you're conflating two issues, to be honest.
Not really. I think
our society,
they're not directly related, of course.
I don't want to make this political or make it into some social thing. Let's look at it in isolation. The man has a job. You are representing a university. Do you condone the use of that word even in that context?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right.
I've never said the word in my life, not even in private.
Well, and the point is it's, people out there that want to say it's just a word. I don't think I can think of a more charged word in U.S. history than the level of hatred and violence that word represents.
But what we are doing is we are not allowing people to make mistakes. You cannot make a certain kind of mistake. You can make all sorts of other mistakes and offend other people, and that's okay, but you cannot do this. You cannot do A, B, and C. We have a hierarchy in this country that is basically determined what's right and what's wrong and what is going to be penalized versus other things that should be just as offensive to other groups of people, but that's okay.
I would hope that people well, first off, I think right and left is stupid to begin with. I think people on the far right and far left are idiots to begin with. But when you get to a point,
absolutely,
when you get to a point where the man knows right from wrong, to excuse it, I equate to being a coach. It was kind of reverse. When someone told me when I switched careers to become a teacher, they said, "You've been coaching for years. You love working with young people. Why don't you teach?" And I laughed it off at first, but then I thought about it. Yeah. I think the parallels between being a coach and being a teacher are very close, because you entrust your kid to a man or a woman. It's a lot of trust given to somebody.
Sure.
He's not working at 7-Eleven. He's not working, but if you're like a police officer, if you're a teacher, if you're in a position of power like that, if you're a coach, you're in a position of power, you're supposed to be teaching these men how to act like men.
Yeah.
Not showing them. We can call it a mistake, but the point is there's no room for people like that. Yeah, you can be careless. I'm not saying crucify.
There is no room. That's the problem. There's no room for anyone to make certain kind of mistakes.
Not in that position, no, Mark. He's not representing himself.
I will tell you this in full confidence that my daughter, who just graduated from a certain university a year ago, she would tell me things that professors would say in the classroom that were far worse on certain levels than what was said there. And because they were directed at certain other types of people, it didn't matter. They could get away with that. And I would tell her, this is insane.
Two wrongs don't make a right. I'm not arguing those people shouldn't lose their job either. That's not a defense for this guy. We can't say that, well, other people make stupid, bigoted comments and they don't get it. And it's like, what is the point? That's not a defense. Cale Gundy is in a position that he represents a university. When you are given that privilege to represent a university, and you're given the privilege of a parent sending their kid to be instructed by you, you are in a special position that there isn't room for errors like that. You need to hold yourself to a standard. And if you can't do it, you're not fit for the job.
But the level of impression that you're giving and impacting a 20 or 21-year-old is far less than what is being impacted on 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds. And we don't seem to be holding those people accountable.
I would argue that what I know about child development, Mark, because you can imprint on kids at that age, but you could also, as a coach.
When I was 20 years old and I sat in a college classroom, I don't care what any professor said to me. It had very low impact on me. My values, my beliefs, they were set. I didn't give a damn what they said to me. They could have told me anything about any type of politics, social values, anything. It would not have had any impact on me whatsoever.
Look, it's one man's opinion. I'm not saying this way. Apparently, other people agree with me. Other people disagree. This is a charged situation. This isn't about what some races could say about other races. Some words say what words. Making a bigoted comment, regardless of what your excuse is for it, I would say is unacceptable.
So we shouldn't have a double standard. We should.
I don't care about double standard, Mark. Forget all other people. I'm asking you: is it okay for Mike Gutty, for Cale Gutty to make that comment? Yes or no?
No, it's not.
Does he represent the University of Oklahoma?
Yes, but if somebody goes to work, and I'm making a lot of assumptions here because I don't know Cale Gundy and I don't know what he's done there, but I'm going to assume since he was still employed after 24 years that he was doing a good job and that he was a professional. I'm going to make that assumption because I don't know. I don't know what his employee record was. But
again, this has nothing to do with if he works at Walmart, if he works somewhere else.
Company for 24 years and I've built up an equity of complete professionalism, strong values, doing the right things, treating people the right way, I would hope that I was able to make a mistake. That we are in an insane place in this country when people cannot make a freaking mistake, and we're going to call them out to that degree. Especially, and again, I'm making assumptions because I don't know about Cale Gundy's record.
So we don't know. That's my point too. We're hearing his side of the story. We're hearing the press release.
I'm not hearing any side of the story. I just heard
on Twitter. I read the release. I read his point. Look, it has nothing to do with him as a human being. It has him. What I'm looking at is he represents a university. No, I mean, that's serious, Mark. This isn't a funny topic. It's not about him as a man or just being fired or making it political. This has nothing to do with race, political, whatever. This is, if you embarrass your employer, you can be terminated.
You don't think that Sean Watson embarrasses the Cleveland Browns? You don't think it's an embarrassment?
The two things really have nothing to do with each other.
About conduct in the workplace. Absolutely, it does.
No, anyway, I'll get back to football. I just think that teachers, because I'm a teacher, and coaches, I think is a huge parallel, and you should be held to a higher standard than just the average person.
Of course, you should be.
And this is just the reason why Oklahoma's not doing it. I'm sure that he has a lot of friends there. I'm sure he might be a great guy. What I'm saying is that when you're asking parents to send your kid to come to their school, and you walk around making what everyone wants to call a little mistake. You guys, that's not a little mistake. He didn't forget practice. It wasn't a little mistake. That's a poor. That moment was a very poor. It says a lot about his judgment that he would say something like that.
Sure, but maybe his 24 years showed that he had great judgment in all other instances. Why he has to pay the price of that? I just. You're not going to be able to change my mind. I don't get it unless there's a lot of other things going on that I don't know about. But I'm just taking it. No, we don't know. If there are other things involved here, then my opinion changes. But based on what I know, I think that we are at a dangerous place in this society. Not just in this instance. There's all sorts of examples of it. We're in a bad place in this society. And I think most of the people watching, they understand that. They know.
No one has to explain more to me. Again, I teach in your city. Nobody has to tell me that we're a really poor place as a society. Trust me, I understand that.
For a lot of
I'm not for the woke culture where everyone wants to be singled out. And I'm saying I'm looking at specifically in the context of this exact situation. I'm not trying to conflate it with some words are acceptable, some words aren't. In my book, that word's totally unacceptable. Absolutely. In my book, when you represent a company or a university, if you're going to embarrass the company or the university on that level, you lose your job. Is it unfortunate? Of course it is. Was it a mistake? Possibly it was. but you can't make those kind of mistakes when you are given the privilege of representing a university. Do you
Based
disagree?
on your opinion, and I respect your opinion. I disagree, and that doesn't mean my opinion's right. There is obviously a line to be drawn at some point based on your judgment, based on my judgment, that this mistake warrants discipline, this mistake warrants termination. And there's a line. There's a line there for you. There's a line there for me. And based on the facts that I know, and I didn't dig into this story, that's not it. If he's an exemplary employee. Now, if he's got a long list of other issues and he was riding the line, then this might be enough to say, you know what, this is enough. Bye. Sure.
I just so if you're thinking that I am dismissing the fact that certain words there's equally racially motivated that are used against other races are acceptable, that's apparently our culture has no issue with. I'm not arguing that. I think it's absurd what gets to go on. Do I feel? But I'm not here I'm not really here to talk about any of that shit. I'm here to talk about one simple thing. Mark, if you had one of your contributors using that word on one of your channels, would you invite them back, even if it was a mistake?
No, I would eliminate them the second they said it. I would stop them and say, hey, and I would call them out, stop it immediately, and it would never happen again. Sure.
And that's what Oklahoma did.
They were in a meeting. They weren't broadcasting to however many people. This has the potential. It's not going to be, but this has the potential to be watched by 1 billion people.
If it could have been swept under the rug, my guess is it would have been. I think are any of us naive enough to think that this has only happened to Oklahoma? I mean, come on. I'm sure there have been worse situations at other schools where it's been swept under the rug. I don't think we have to go on and make an extreme case for that. Anyway, listen, I don't want to spend 10 minutes talking about this. I'm not here to make a political comment. I'm not here to say what words are right, what words are wrong, what words can be said, what words can't be said. What I'm saying is purely, in my opinion, in a position as a coach, in a position of power where you are entrusted with young men what we hear all the time, we sculpt men here, right? How many times you heard coaches say, I'm not here in the business of football. I'm here to bring the best out in men and this, that, blah, blah. Well, if you're going to have that kind of attitude, you got to hold yourself to a much higher standard than if you're running the local Walmart.
It actually might teach those young men something if they saw a situation where that coach was disciplined, dealt with, where he had to apologize to them, had to talk to them, and then they saw him grow from that and continue to be what apparently he was before, which was an outstanding, again, I don't know the employee record, but good enough to keep a job for 24 years person, and then he grew from that. Maybe that would be a good teaching moment and a good teaching process past that. But no, we just go, bam, you're gone. See ya. You're out. You said one thing.
In any employment, pretty much any employment job, if you threw that word out in public.
Tim, you're talking about what's going on. I'm talking about what should happen. I'm trying to bring us to a place, and again, this is just my opinion, where we have a little grace. Here's a word that nobody uses in society today, and it's called grace. People should look it up. Look up what it means, that we actually have grace for other people. We allow them to make mistakes. Yeah, I need grace. You need grace. We all need grace in life, grace and forgiveness. But that doesn't exist.
And listen, it has to do with this cancel culture society. I get that. But we live in that world, Mark.
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
but why don't we?
I would love to form a utopia as well. Do I think that he's a bigot? I've got no idea.
I have no idea either.
Okay.
Maybe he is.
Do I think he's the evil man? I would guess, like you just said, he's been there for a number of years. He's got ex-players coming out and saying he's a great guy. I highly doubt. What I'm just simply trying to say is people are all up in arms about what's happening. And I'm just saying, when you take a job like he has, you know you're held to a different standard. This is not about free speech. No, he is paid good money to represent a university.
Sure.
And so No one should be. Did I even say, Mark? I hope you're not gonna be wrong here. Do I think he should be fired? Do I think he should be fired? I think given our society, yeah, if I could fix the world, I agree with you, because again, I'm a teacher. I know that people make mistakes, and what you do is you try to get them to grow and learn from it. I get that.
The only thing, as I understand it, Tim, that we disagree on is you are speaking the truth. You are speaking in today's society what happened to him, and it's obvious that was backed up by the actions taken at Oklahoma. I am talking about what I would hope the way things should be.
Yeah, well, I mean, sure, but the genie's out of the bottle.
Then what do we have to talk about if we're talking about what happened? That's what happened. Boom, it happened. That's what happens in this society. Bye, we're done. We don't discuss it. But I'm trying to promote something a little higher. I believe in goodness in people to a degree.
And the discussion I'm having is when you're in a position like Cale Gundy's, or if you're a police officer, or if you're a teacher, which are very difficult jobs, and you can easily make a mistake. When you have those positions, you know that it's a privilege, and you know that you have to put up a lot of crap, and you're one mistake away from losing it, your job. But there's a reason for that, Mark, because the flip side of that is you got to really be able to take, listen, the flip side of that is you can't have people making those mistakes in those positions, period. Because you have to set a standard, because if you let it get, if you allow that to happen in your organization, it's like, okay, well, if I say that word, I'm just going to get, counseled, and everything be okay down the road. You have to set a standard for positions of trust. And if you're given a position of trust, you go into that job knowing that you don't have the leeway to make a judgmental error at that level. That's all.
And again, I believe we've got a double standard. And I'm not just talking about, or I'm not talking about a racial standard. I'm talking about in other categories that there are allowances given to people in those positions that I think are absurd, to allow them freedoms to tell children.
I agree 100%.
Things.
What I hear from the left and what I hear from the right truly makes me just sit there and if it wasn't so sad, it would be funny the way some of these people walk around and think that they can tell people how to live their own personal lives, get into their private homes, tell their kids how to raise their kids. I think that's all ridiculous. But when you talk about a societal level, again, we're not talking about what he said, Joe Blow walking on the street talking to someone. This is a guy given a job, and quite frankly, I'm sorry, it's a privilege to be a coach at the University of Oklahoma. And if you don't conduct yourself the right way, you should be shown the door. And listen, I don't want to talk about anymore unless you want to follow up on it. I want to say one thing I noticed. Did you notice this is a weird quirk about the numbers in the coaches poll?
No.
There are 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 15.
Okay.
There are 3 SEC teams in the top 15. There are 3 Big Ten teams, 2 ACC teams, and by connection, Notre Dame. That means there's 5 basically from each of the power. There's 3 from each of the 5 power conferences. And so I know it's a preseason poll, and preseason polls don't mean crap. They don't. They're not even worth the time, quite frankly. I mean, it's entertaining, but as far as what the use they have in college football, in a lot of ways, I think preseason polls actually hurt in the long run, especially in the poll era, how teams finish up because of where they started at. But at the end of the day, you're looking at, it looks pretty even across the board, and we're trying to bury the Big 12, we're trying to bury the Pac-12 and the ACC. It's definitely SEC. The 3 SEC teams I think are all in the top 9. But it looks like there's a pretty even balance between the Power 5 conferences, as represented in the coaches poll.
True. I've got a lot of things that I could say to that, but we'll keep moving here. Well, thank you, Tim. We didn't have, so I was going to say at the beginning of the conversation that we didn't have a topic like we did with the Pac-12 that would get your juices flowing, but we came across it even more so.
No, see, this was so funny. This to me, this has nothing to do with race or being woke, or I'm probably, unfortunately, I got to be very careful at my work because I'm very unwoke in a very woke profession.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of respect for my profession. And I would hope that Cale Gundy would have more respect for his profession, because I do believe, I mean, has anyone ever coached? You have kids looking up to you with those big wide eyes. And I know it's different when they're 18 to 22, but you know what? Not really in the society. Those guys are looking up to their coach a lot. And you know, you just, it's not about cancel culture. It's about really having respect for your profession and knowing the responsibility, period. And I'll go, I got my fans, Eric and Jeff in the thing. Again, I didn't want to talk about it for 20 minutes, but I was so shocked that people really want to defend that the use of that word as a coach.
Well,
you can't do that. You can't do that when you're representing a university, period. It has nothing to do with politics or any other stuff.
No.
Nothing to do with politics at all. This is not a political comment.
Not at all. It's again, I will say this with full conviction. That's something that I've never stated. It's just never come out of my mouth. And hopefully it never will. I can't guarantee, but I pretty much guarantee I've lived 54 years on this planet and it hasn't.
And let's be really clear. I'm sorry. I'm hearing a lot of comments from Jeff Webster. This has nothing to do with being woke. You can't defend the use of that word. That has nothing to do with being woke.
No, you can't.
Woke is stupid. Woke is like this weird flip the wrong direction, you know, this big pendulum where everyone's going way to the top of the wrong direction. Not using that word is not being woke. It's called being civilized.
And Tim, I believe you understand. I'm not justifying or defending what he did in any way. I just believe that the penalty is way too severe. And again, I'm making some assumptions here. So John makes a comment here that rushing to judgment without knowing the context in which the word was used, et cetera, is stupid. John, understand that I made the original statement to say, if this is all that happened, then this is what I believe. There might be all sorts of other things that I don't know about, that we don't know about, or that I just didn't look into the story any further to know. And then that would change possibly my opinion. But as it stands, based on what I know, that's my opinion.
Yeah, and just being against racism is not woke. Woke are those crazy people running around trying to tell you what you have to think and that you have to be ashamed to be a white male. Believe me, I trust me.
Yes.
I understand what that all stuff is. This has nothing to do with any of that crap. This has to do with you're a coach, you have a responsibility. Anyone in the chat that wants to make it more than what I just said, go right ahead and be childish. But again, anyone that's ever worked where you have a responsibility to parents, you know that you should be held to a different standard. And that's my only point.
That word has no place in society. It just because of how it hurts and because of what it refers to in our past in this country. I could say more about the unfortunate double standard about using that word. It should just be eliminated, period. But we have this double standard about who can, who can't.
And I agree that everyone should be held to the same standard, regardless of your race or what word you're using. If it's a word that's out of bounds, if it's a word used in hate or in ignorance, regardless of the word or regardless of the person saying it, it should not be based on who says it or what they say.
Yeah.
Hatred in any degree, in any direction, in a position of power is wrong.
Yeah. I can't go around. I'm sorry. I'm not smart enough to maybe hold an index card in my pocket to say, I, as a white male, can't say da, 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 but they can say da, da, da. They can say.
Mark, do you know you can't say that word, though, as a white male? I know as a white male, that's not my place to say that word. Right? Yeah. I don't need an index card to know that word is a complete ignorant, bigoted word. I don't need an index card for that. I would hope most people would not need an index card for that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Well, have a great day.
Appreciate it. All right. You know, I was going to wrap this up like a long time ago, but we got George. We got Coos Walker. We want to hear from them. Hey, George.
Oh my God.
George, there you are.
Can we just agree to disagree? Can we agree to disagree? Man, man.
To an extent, possibly.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
I usually do this on my phone, but I'm doing it on my tablet because nobody would post the link in the chat. But since I was on my tablet earlier, I could go all the way back to the beginning, and I scrolled back and found it. Anyway, fuck, my hair is getting so long. I'm almost afraid to say anything, man. What should we talk about?
You say whatever you want, George, within reason.
Hey, all right, here's an idea. Get one of those things that they use in a sushi restaurant that makes, you know, the spring rolls go around, or the sushi. You know what I'm talking about?
Not a big
Have you ever
sushi
seen
guy.
one of those?
I've had it a
Well, it's
couple
like
times.
a train track. It's like a train track. The food goes around and around, and you pick what you want.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then you could put your helmets on it, and they could go around and around and around. So, nope.
I would keep people entertained while I had boring things to say, I guess. We could. Yeah. If somebody wants to send that in.
Yeah. Or you could just rig one up where your kid rides a bike and it pulls this thing around like on a clothes hanger wire, and all the helmets are riding around.
Yeah. My boy has better things to do.
Have you ever heard of a show called Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson? It's on TV. You ever heard of that?
Not aware of that one.
It's on TV, and she has a YouTube channel also, Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson. And all she does is investigate. And last week it was about the COVID narrative, and the week before that it was science wars or schools or something. It's always down to earth, as objective as you can get on any subject. I'm just saying, I can't explain what takes a half an hour episode to explain about all these subjects we're discussing. We can't do it in a sound bite, you know? And it appears to be objective. It's an objective point of view, which is hard to find anymore. But here's an example that's not in her TV show. The Communist Party wrote a book 50 years ago, and it said, we're going to go to America, and anybody that opposes us, we're going to call them a fascist, and a Nazi, and a hater. And even though it's not true, they said if you call someone that name enough times, eventually it sticks. And these are buzzwords. They carry a lot of weight. So you just keep calling someone a name over and over and over again. And pretty soon everyone thinks they're a fascist or a Nazi or a hater. I see a lot of that going on nowadays.
You and me. I sure do.
They never talk about what you actually did. They just call you names, you know?
No, they don't talk about the truth. They don't talk about, yes, laying out the story or the facts. It just becomes a big name calling, and they know that they've got those certain names in their back pocket, and they can just spew you, just spew them out at you, and that's going to cause the other person to back down because they're afraid to be called out on social media in that way. Yeah.
It's to separate and divide the country into factions. And a house divided cannot stand. So there we go. Down the tubes.
That is right.
Also, the Biden administration purportedly has strings attached to all the school money now. If you don't teach the kids this CRT and the LBGT XYZ, and how can somebody have all the letters of the alphabet and the rainbow? I don't understand. But still, all the letters, all the colors, and critical race theory. If they don't teach that, then they don't qualify for federal funds. So as far as being a teacher goes, you're more just like an order follower. You're going to do as you're told or else. No room for conscience, no room for your beliefs. You'll do as you're told. And that's what happened in Germany, didn't it? All those war crimes, they were order followers. Killing all those innocent people.
George, we'll wrap it up this way. I agree with your statements there. And that's obviously much more important than what we talk about here on a daily basis with college football. But the reason we were talking about the previous situation is because that involved a football coach. Therefore, we're going to
But we don't even know what he said, Mark. We don't even know what the guy said.
No, it's assumed what he said.
We're guessing. And plus, it really depends on how you pronounce it, as far as I know, from what kids tell me. You better say it this way, not that way. Because one way is okay and the other way is not. Although I wouldn't try any of it nowadays. Anyway, the reason I called, the most interesting thing about college football this season is all the new coaches. It just adds a whole nother level of excitement to it. I want to see what Kelly does, and Napier, and Riley. I'm missing some. But, Venerables. All
Kelly,
of them. This is good. Another layer of excitement.
Yes. Because we didn't have any more coaching turnover than we typically do, but at that level, I don't know that we've ever had that many major jobs transition.
I forgot Cristobal. Yeah. And Mario. One last thing. I still think we should do 3 tiers of playoffs. They take their first 4 to their invitational, and then we have the NIT level one, the next 4, and then the next 4. And that'll give the TV channel something to make money on. And you can incorporate the bowls. There'd be the A championship, the B championship, and the C championship. Maybe a D championship too. And then we can take those 4 champions. No, we can only do 2 more. Never mind. Forget it. It's too complicated. Whatever ESPN wants.
All right, George.
All right.
Bye.
I love you guys. And remember, love one another. That's an order from God.
Good.
All right.
Good. Thanks, man.
Later, Gators.
All right, let's wrap it up with what I believe is going to be some common sense here. Not that the previous calls weren't, but we got Justin here.
What's up, Mark?
Not too much. How you doing?
I'm good. I was hoping to get in with Tim, but that's okay. I'm sure he's still listening.
He was in here a second ago.
I actually agree with both of you because I think you both kind of agree on some of those issues. But while your show has been going on, there's been some updates on the whole Kel Gundy thing. And I don't know if I came in late, so I'm not sure if you caught it or not. But apparently he read the word multiple times, not just once.
Yeah.
And that changed, I think, to me, in my opinion, because I've actually done 2 videos on this already today. My first one, I was ranting and raving about what you were saying, cancel culture, it's ridiculous, all that. Then when I said he did it multiple times, it kind of changed my opinion because
then you know what you're doing. Sure.
Once you read it once,
yeah,
you stop and say, okay, wait a minute, I don't need to go any further, or at least you're going to be more alert and aware of what you're saying the rest of the time. Whatever he's reading. Yeah. However long it was, you'd be more aware of what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So if you see that word coming up, then you'd know to stop yourself. And the fact that he didn't stop himself, to me, was an egregious error in judgment. I'm not saying he's a bad person. It doesn't make him a bad person.
Yeah.
But like Tim said, in the position he's in, he has to do a better job of reading the room, knowing his audience, and that he's around impressionable young people. Most of them of a different skin color, and he's probably has to use better judgment in that situation. That's just my thoughts.
Well, to me, that's new information. So that changes my opinion right there.
That's the reason I wanted to chime in earlier, because I figured you didn't know that. And even if you didn't agree with me, I still would respect you. But I figured it might change your thinking.
Because, Justin, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've done this a handful of times. Obviously, we all know how our minds processes information versus our mouth. And most of us can glance at a comment and we can read it in a split second before we ever start to utter the words.
Absolutely.
But there's been 3 or 4 times where I read a comment before I did that. That 3 out of a zillion times that I've ever read a comment, I started reading the comment, then I read something that I didn't want to put out there.
Right.
And so that's how I kind of envisioned thinking he shouldn't have done that. I never disagreed with that.
Right.
That was just dumb to do. Even if he was completely innocent and unintentional, that's just a dumb thing to do. But we can put it in the mistake category. Now, with this new information, at least new to me, that he repeated this 4 or 5 times, well, yeah, that's...
Yeah. And based on some of the comments that Tony Altamore and some others were saying, it was with it, which I didn't know this, but apparently they said it was it was really odd. They said he just kept saying the same things over and over.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on. I mean, but whatever it is, I think Oklahoma made the decision that they felt was best for the program.
Yeah.
Before this thing escalated and got out of control, and before it could hurt recruiting. I mean, and all of this, I hate it for him because he's probably deep down, he's probably not a bad guy. He just made a terrible mistake. And, but the position he's in, I agree with Tim, the position he's in, it's not a mistake you can make.
So unfortunately, you brought up a good point right there. And we see this time and time again in these situations where, let's say, a company drops an athlete because an athlete said something, posted something, and the company just wants to say, we want to distance ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The company could believe, the men and women running the company could believe, okay, that wasn't the best thing to do, but it's a forgivable thing. But they're making a business decision.
Yes.
Just like Oklahoma could be making a business decision thinking, we would love to give him a second chance. We would love to go through the process of talking him through this, getting him some counseling, giving him better direction, those sorts of things. But we can't afford to do that. We got to make a business decision.
Right. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day. I see the comment about the rap lyrics. If that's true, I don't know, man. That it's not very egregious to be reading rap lyrics. I don't know, but still, yet, I mean, I know as a white guy, I'm not going to be reading rap lyrics probably in front of that audience.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So that's, in my eyes, that's not a good defense because, again, you can look at the lyrics, and if you hit the first offensive word, then you just shut it down from there.
Yep, I agree.
Past that, yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you, Mark. I know you've been on here for 2.5 hours, so I'll let you go. I just wanted to share that with you.
Thanks, Coos. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Have a good evening.
All right. So there you go. I stated that many times throughout the my rant that there's new information, that I may change my opinion. I still think that we're in an insane environment in this country. And again, I will use my daughter as an example in her college experience. And her college experience was phenomenal. She loved it. But she had multiple professors say things. And I'm not even talking of a racial tone. I'm talking about... Yes, just insane things that, in some ways, worse than this, because we're talking about people's freedom, right to think, right to decide. Like basically saying, if you don't think this, if you don't agree with me, then you're going to get a bad grade. Multiple teachers. All right. All right. So that is our Big 12 preview. that's our Big 12 preview. Not much of one, but that's what we started. That was our starting point to talk about the Big 12, which, again, I think, especially once Oklahoma and Texas leave and the new 4 come in, is going to be an intriguing conference and should be this season between Oklahoma, Texas, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. Who's going to win the thing? I will let you know before the season starts. I will take my best shot at it. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. I'm going to continue to post content, of course. We will see what's grabs me next. It might be a look at the coaches poll. It may be another week 1 preview. We've delivered Florida and Utah. Check out that video. We've got other key matchups, of course, in week 1. Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Purdue, Penn State, West Virginia, Pitt, and others. Right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate the support. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App is as is indicated on the scroll. And also keep in mind that we've got our Discord. Go to patreon.com, search Mark Rogers TV. Go to that Discord right there.